Right. Boom, just like that. We're live. Cade Rodd, how are you, buddy?
Good, you?
Man, I'm so good. We had a little conversation beforehand. I'll always tell my guests how lucky and excited I am to be doing this job. This is great. So, what are you doing? You're not. You don't seem to be in your normal place. You look like you're traveling a little bit.
Yeah, we're actually on our way to the next race in Fernley, Nevada. We had a quick turnaround from the last one in Moab. We had like a week to tear the car down, get it all back together,
Oh my gosh.
throwing wrenches around, getting everything loaded back up. It was quick, but I mean everything looked good after the last one. So we're just trying to go out there and hopefully repeat, and just keep the momentum going.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you before we get to all the car stuff and the prep stuff. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where do you live? What do you do for a job, and all that other kind of fun stuff?
Oh yeah, so bottom corner of Colorado, Cortez, small town Cortez. It's like a farm town. It's nothing big, 10,000 people probably. Born and raised there. I build off-road cars for Jimmy's. That's my normal job.
Yeah.
That's what I do Monday through Fridays. I build off-road cars and then I get off work. And then I start my other job, which is racing cars, which is actually where I make most of my money and things like that. But that's actually a part-time, where I get off work and then I start prepping and getting ready for the race. So, I mean, I live, eat, breathe off-road cars.
So let me ask you this. How do you, let's just jump the gun here. How do you go from like amateur to being a professional race car driver? What was that leap like for you? I want to hear your story.
It's been a long time coming to where we're at today. And every day, every time, every year, there's a new goal, a new mission, a new endeavor that you're heading out on, and a new accomplishment. So that's something super special about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a long time. It's never been what people actually think it is. Everybody looks from the outside. Oh, Cade Rodd, Jimmy's, it's easy, blah blah. But in all reality, it's night and day. Me and Randy, nose to the grindstone, every hour of every day, trying to get this and make it work. Luckily this year and some of last year, it's actually beginning to pay off, and it's becoming easier for me to take off work and not be worried about if I'm going to get paid or if I'm going to, be able to pay my bills. And this year has really, really changed. And so that's something super cool.
Yeah. So let me ask you, what got you into the off-road sport? Because, you working at Jimmy's part-time and doing the race car thing too, like you don't just step into that role. Jimmy's 4x4 is like a worldwide name. And one of the things I mentioned to you before we got started was I have followed you on Instagram for a long time, and I was so new to off-roading. I thought Jimmy's 4x4 was like the name of your car. Like I didn't know anything about it. That's how new I was when I found you. What did you do to get ready for that position, and what's life like working at Jimmy's 4x4?
It's actually been easy because, Randy's my dad. I grew up around it. So my parents raced whenever I was a kid.
Yeah.
So, stepping into it was actually easy. It's nothing different than it has been for the past 10, 15 years. They were pioneers in the sport of rock racing, years and years ago with XRA and We Rock and them, Shannon Campbell, JT Taylor. They were all, in the beginning doing it. And when the speed started coming and the car started evolving, I started in a side-by-side and kind of worked my way up. Sponsors wanted to see us in a full-size car, and then we built the car. We started first race in full-size car in 2016, and King of the Hammers. We went out and finished after time, but I mean, we had a hell of a day trying to get there.
Yeah, finishing at King of Hammers is a victory in its own, for sure, especially it being your first year, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we shattered the front axle into two pieces, and we had to weld it back together with wrenches. Finish line now.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have been around it for a long time. You mentioned your parents racing. when you started in side-by-sides, what side-by-side model did you start in? Because that'll kind of put like a timestamp on it for you.
So that would have been 2011 or 12.
Yeah.
And
the 900 XP era.
I was in a Rhino, so it's like a like 40. And so I was told, like, and I started in like a bicycle helmet with just the stock seat belt, like totally would not work nowadays. But I mean, it was the car out there that wasn't even supposed to finish, and we came across fourth out of like 12 fully built razors and everything. I was like 11 or 12, so it was something that wasn't supposed to happen. So we started adding a cage and a long arm kit to it. Nothing to the motor. It still topped out at 40. But I mean, the cool thing about it was you could keep it at 40.
That's awesome. That's really cool, man. Where did you race that thing? I mean, was it all over the country or just local to where you are?
Whenever I was racing side-by-side, it was just local. I raced in my hometown whenever We Rock came to town, and we raced Cinco de Baja in Albuquerque and a couple other things, like, because it probably wouldn't have passed tech for any of the big events, big organizations. It probably wouldn't have made it. And plus, I wasn't old enough to race in all these other ones. So
when did you decide, okay, I've had success with the side-by-side stuff. You know, you mentioned that the goal was always to put you in the big car or to get you in that big car. What was that transition like? What was it where you said, or you or your family said, okay, let's get him in the big car. Let's actually make this a reality.
You know, it just started happening. You know, we got that chassis for the big car. We built it for Faravani like 12 years before. And it sat in his garage, never got built. So we ended up buying it back and just throwing parts at it when we could afford it, and then just ended up finishing it right before Hammers 2016. So I mean, it was a long time building that car, just like racing. And then for like 2 years before that, I wasn't racing the side-by-side. We sold it to help pay for things. And I mean, it was easy. It transferred over really well, you know, like having like racing, even the local races, going out to Hammers. I mean, it all kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. The local racing that you were doing, was it more short course, or was it like King of Hammers Ultra 4-esque, where you have a little bit of blend of everything?
The one in my hometown, Cortez, was a blend of everything, like even like river crossings and rocks and desert. I mean, there wasn't really any short course, but I mean, it was just out on some property that they found, that they just went out and must have just hit record on the GPS in their side-by-side and just made that the course. And so the different disciplines, plus like I grew up wheeling. Like we had a kid's buggy whenever I was like 8. That was a full-size car. It was on 42 Trepadors. So I mean, like we were out wheeling that 4-seater with me and my brothers. We've been wheeling that since we were kids. So out in Moab and hitting all the trails, Pritchett, Coyote back whenever it was open, BFE. So that's why, you know, like it's always been a part of us. We've always done it, you know.
So let me ask you this. When you guys are building that car and it's taking a little while for that car to come to fruition, is there anything in particular that like really makes you enjoy that car, or what's your favorite part, or what was the hardest part? Does anything stand out?
Of building the car?
Yeah, like, you know, from when you guys took it from, you know, kind of just a thought, and you guys bought the chassis back, you guys are making it happen. What was the hardest part, or you know, was there anything that really stood out to you that made that car unique for you?
That one, my first car, it was unique because it was, that was before we were doing production. So now we have laser cut chassis that they're the same, you know. We have the brackets that go on, everything kind of goes in the same spot. That was before that, when they were all custom. So I mean, it's a one-off car. There's cars that look like it and have a lot of similarities, but it was one-off. So I mean, that was always unique about it. But always the hardest part of building a car is the last 2 weeks. Everybody thinks it's getting started at the beginning, you know, the beginning fab work or this. That's easy to keep rolling. It's once you start running into like, oh, I need to buy this, so I can't do anything today, or until the part shows up, and then you get that in, and then you realize, oh, I need this, you know. So then it turns into the last finishing touches are always the hardest to get through and not rush.
Where do you think that the cars that you guys build, where do they shine best? Are they a rock heavy car? Are they, do they really thrive in the desert? What is your opinion on that?
On which cars? Because I mean, for example, we have just different chassis designs. We have 15 different cars. We have trail cars. We have full-blown rock crawlers. We have
run me through all of them. I mean, you don't have to run through all of them, but run me through a few of your favorites.
Like if I were to build a crawler right now, I would build one of our RW1s, which it stands for Wreck Wheeler. The first one that we built. It's our lead guy built it. It's a 2-seat car, so it's not going to compete in like unlimited class D-Rock crawling.
Sure.
But I mean, where these guys are putting these cars is insane. You wouldn't believe it. And those are just full-blown crawlers, base model. I mean, but people are getting crazy with them and doing portals and fully TIG welded, anodized links. Big ballers come in and they buy these things, and we get to make them as badass as we can. But those are just the crawlers. But then of course, like the Red Dragon, the most winningest Ultra 4 car since Ultra 4. And that car, it just, when Lauren had it, it dominated. I want one. That's what I want to build for a 4400 cars. I want to build a Red Dragon, and that's coming.
Hey, that's awesome, man.
So we build race cars, solid axle cars, crawlers, trail rigs, all sorts of stuff.
Is there any difference from the builder's perspective? Like, do you guys enjoy building trail cars or over building race cars, or is it easy? Is it more enjoyable to build a race car over a trail car or a rock crawler?
It's funner building a race car for yourself. It's funner building a crawler for a customer. Just because
that would make sense.
When typically race car drivers have already been in the industry and they've built cars and everything, so the little finicky, I want to move my seat 1/8 of an inch forward, and you got to cut everything off and redo it, because they know how they want it. And more power to them. I'm the same way when I'm building mine, but I have a lot more drive to do it when I'm doing it for myself. But the crawler guys, they're usually just like, I'll deal with it and I'll just go wheel the shit out of it and have an awesome time. And so they're usually more grateful, and they usually have a better time whenever they're showing up and picking up the car and everything like that.
I understand that. So I follow this account on Instagram called they're called Choke Cherry Crawlers, and I just had to go check to make sure that I understood correctly. But they run a lot of your cars, and man, I have seen pictures of those things so twisted up and like just in the wildest spots. I think it's amazing, and I just wanted to make sure that those were your cars. But man, it's really amazing the finished product that you guys have, because not only do they come out super functional, but there's the polish of like a professional product, and you can see it in all the details that you guys build. What would you say makes, it from the builder side, what pushes it over the edge to be that special professional product that y'all sell? The best built cars that we've done are always TIG welded, because there's always that extra, it has to fit so much closer to get a good weld, or like a MIG welder or something. So all those cars come out fitting better, looking better. It's a cleaner product at the end. There's more attention to detail, but just the welding in it and the bracket work is what will push it to something other than just, instead of 2 tabs, doing overlay plates and things like that really make it look professional, is what's going to push it to the next level. It's what's going to push the envelope. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, like I said just a second ago, it's one of those things where you see a bunch of cars being built, but when something is like, this came out of a professional shop where you can expect excellence. So I put you guys in that category for sure. Okay, so let's talk about you. Let's talk about your car. Obviously, you had an awesome performance at the Ultra 4 Area BFE event that was a couple weekends ago. I want to ask you first, you came to Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
What did you think? Because that is actually about an hour and a half from my house, and that is a park that I've raced at and I go trail ride at, and it is rough. What'd you think?
It was probably one of the more brutal races that I've ever done. Like outside hammers, and that's about it. Well, granted, it was because of the elements, and then never ran that car as slow because of the tight trees. I've always just that car's only been in desert situations or short course situations. You know, I've never really had it kept under 20 miles an hour in the tight trees, and you know, there's not a lot of airflow getting into the car. So I mean, the floorboard got so hot that it melted the bottom of my foot, and I had the hugest blister on it. It came through the seat. So the fatigue halfway through that race of me getting burned, and then it started raining on us, it made for an insane day. The course was awesome. The course was fun, but it was definitely not something I want to do again.
Yeah. Okay. So that was. I thank you for answering my next question. They typically, and I'm going to be a little bit critical of Adventure Off-Road Park here. They have run that course like 10 times. They ran it in I think they may have made one adjustment in like way back in the woods, but they ran that course. I ran a similar course to what you guys did in the UTVs, and dude, it just beats the shit out of you. Like I mean, my thing in the UTV, I was in the RS1 that was, I had the suspension totally tuned wrong. After I talked to the guy I got it from, he was like, yeah, I'm surprised your neck isn't broken. I had it way set wrong. Anyways, I got beat up from the race. And the big thing about your 4800 class that you run is in my opinion, the biggest thing is the tire restriction, that it has to be a DOT approved tire. How does that come into play when you have to drive so aggressively, like at Tennessee, to make up time, you know, through those woods? You got to kill it when you can kill it. How do you conserve the tires? What's your mind?
It would actually blow your mind how strong those Nittos are.
Really?
Like, yeah, I've driven on a bunch of tires all growing up, but like nothing compares. Like, honestly, of course, nothing's as good as a competition tire. You know, a DOT 37. I mean, it's basic, but I mean, there's times out there whenever I was hammering and you hit something and you should have gotten a flat. And you'd think that it would have popped the tire, but it would actually blow your mind how tough those tires actually are.
Yeah, so it really dawned on me watching the Area BFE event, because people were getting trashed everywhere. Tire here, tire there, tire this. And I was just thinking to myself, do you think the biggest worry in the 4800 class? There are other restrictions, but is that the name of the game?
Really, yeah, because, you know, you're limited to solid axle, front and rear, 2-seat. I mean, you're always worried somebody's going to show up with some new revolutionary car that's just going to sweep the series. But I mean, it hasn't happened yet. But really, yeah, like almost every track we run in Ultra 4, it comes down to who got the least amount of flats or who had the least amount of problems. And coincidentally, tires are going to be the first problem. And so if you can get a good tire, then that's going to be the name of the game.
What are your thoughts on anti-puncture? And I know the UTVs, I think it's UTVs, like flat preventatives, like tire balls and things like that. They Ultra 4 used to allow those, correct?
Yeah, I used to run them.
Okay, so last year they pulled them out. Is that correct?
The year before.
Okay.
Yeah, the year before last they pulled them out.
Tell me your thoughts on it, and then tell me, you know, like, how does it change your driving style?
It changes everything. My first year we were running them, and I've took a hard hit on lap 1 of a 4-lap race and not even known that I had a flat tire the entire time with the tire ball.
Yeah.
And so, like, the big issue with it, the reason why they got rid of it, I mean, they'll say it's for safety or whatever, but at the end of the day, tire balls are protecting the tire companies that don't put in and build a good tire. You know what I mean? So
absolutely,
it's hard to prove products and your tire's durability when the dude next to you is running half the tire, but he has 4 flat tires, but doesn't know because he's on tire balls.
I hadn't thought about it like that, to be honest with you. I had only thought about it from the driver's perspective, not the necessarily like the proving ground that is the race.
Yeah, that's the point of racing. You know, proving what your car can do, what your equipment can do, what you can do, and especially in the endurance off-road industry that we're in, it's literally, what can I do to this car and it still survive and make it to the finish? And so you're trying to put the best stuff in, which is why people were running tire balls, but then it takes away from, you know, the truly great tire companies out there. I mean, my driving style hasn't really changed. For even without tire balls, just for the reason that the tire is super, super tough. And on top of that, if I blow a tire, I'm going to run it on the wheel for 12 miles until I get to the pit. I mean, it's a forged vision wheel. I mean, the thing doesn't dent or anything.
Yeah,
I did carry a spare.
Well, see, okay, so that was part of my next question is, you know, guys who don't carry spares in the 4800 class, my thought is like, what are you thinking? You know, you can do that at Tennessee where, you know, you're a half a mile maybe from the pits, but, you know, you can't do that at Hammers. So at Hammers, do you choose to run no spare?
No, at Hammers I would definitely run a spare. So Tennessee being a 6-mile lap, anywhere that I get a flat, it's going to be faster to me to finish the lap and have the pits change. Getting in and out of the car takes a lot of effort, time. You get in, you're exhausted, and then fatigue will hit you sooner. You'll make more mistakes, get more flats. So I just, you know, weight reduction in it and everything was just, that's why we don't run it.
That's smart. Did you guys run a spare at Area BFE?
Yeah.
How far out did you go during that race? It seemed rather contained.
So you go out, like, really at any given time, you're a mile to 2 miles away from the pit, and that's at like the farthest points. But I mean, it was like a 6 or 7 mile loop, but you go out and then you snake back right along that trail, and then you go back out. So it just did a bunch of zigzags out there, and then you came back up. So you weren't ever truly far, but out there, the difference is that they put us in a bunch of really technical rocks where if you had a flat and you didn't have the right diameter to grab the rock and the rim sinking in the hole, then that's going to be the determining factor out there, which is why I ran a spare. In Tennessee, it didn't really matter. It was all, you had to have your speed going up it because everything's so slick out there. You had to have speed. That was the biggest thing with all the climbs in Tennessee. Here, you have to slow down, and it's technical, and you keep momentum. But if you start falling in the holes because your tires aren't there, then you're just going to get stuck.
So there's a lot of East Coast guys that listen to this, and they will see pictures of Moab online, or, you know, even Johnson Valley to some degree, and their comment is like, wow, look at all the traction you get. And you mentioned the speed that you have to carry through like the slippery rocks and stuff on the East Coast. Could you hit Moab obstacles and Johnson Valley obstacles with that same momentum, or is everything just so much bigger?
No, yeah, you can definitely hit it with speed.
Okay.
That's the same story out in BFE. Was a lot of it, like, if you let the weight of the car sit down on holes in between the rocks instead of carrying the momentum over it, then that's what's going to slow you down. That's what's going to put the weight on the tire. People think whenever you're going across it and you're keeping momentum, that's how you're going to blow the tire. No. It's whenever you stop and you let the weight of the car shift onto that tire in that hole up against that rock. That's how you wear out shafts, diffs, blow tires. Whenever you keep your momentum and the weight of the car moving forwards, it's a dance over it. So that's what's cool about me racing on the east and then coming back out here to the west, is that a lot of that I carried over. And so, like, out in Moab, it was all momentum wheeling. All of the hard climbs, as long as you hit them with momentum, you would breeze right through them. It's whenever you tried to butt your front tires open and kind of crawl it that you'd end up on your belly and you'd have to winch, you'd have to triple shot it.
So that's so interesting because, you know, again, being someone who's never been to Moab or Johnson Valley or anything like that, the only videos you see are guys in either buggies or Jeeps, and they're just, you know, half a mile an hour trying to get up something, and they'll like spin just a little bit, back up, and then go from there. And, you know, everyone in the comment section has their own opinion. They're like, just hit it, you know, just send it. That's my favorite one, is just send it. And, you know, it seems like in a race mindset, you would want to just carry momentum anyways. Whereas I see a lot of the guys who are just purely West Coast, they don't necessarily have that experience. Maybe they're more prone to get everything loaded down and you know, really try and crawl it and be more finesse to it. I saw a lot of that in the live stream that we watched during the race.
And not only that, you know, it's like a lot of everybody that grows up wheeling. I mean, you're not gonna carry momentum over every climb because it's your crawler. You're not trying to fix it. You're not trying to win a race. You're there to have a good time. You know what I mean? So nobody wants to break their stuff out on a wheeling trip and be that guy that's broken down and all of his friends that are totally fine because he beat his shit up a climb.
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
That corresponds to the race because a lot of these dudes out there racing, they're not trying to break the car, or they'll pull off into the pit for a creak or a groan or a leak or anything. I mean, I've never finished a race in the top 3 and my car not been completely destroyed, completely clapped out, shocks completely faded, went through a couple tires, no brakes, transmission slipping. Like, that's just the name of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I want to say something, you know, the reason I mentioned that, and you kind of mentioned like guys that are out there with their crawlers just having a good time, don't want to break. I'm sure you've seen on Instagram, Facebook, things like that. Guys down here in the East Coast, they just drive it like they're willing to total it anytime. And it's just, that's trail riding. I interviewed a couple guys where they're local, and I was like, man, why don't you guys like to trail ride anymore? Because all they do is race. And they're like, well, it's hard because I'll go out and I'll see a hill and, you know, I want to hit it, and to get up it, you have to, you know, drive it like you stole it. And it just seems to have this weird mindset down here where like you go hit it and destroy it. It seems like a very East Coast thing, and I've never understood it. I don't get it, but I would be curious to know, what do you think, being, you know, middle of the country, West Coast, what do you think when you see guys in the East Coast drive like that? Well, all the stuff on social media.
It's the greatest thing. Kentucky, they had a rock bouncer shootout after.
Yeah.
And like, I understand that over there, everything is so slick. It just, the rock, the dirt, the hill, everything is just so much slicker than it is out here on the West Coast. So you have to do that to get up, you know. And but watching those guys just beat their rig, beat them up those hills, it's so much fun to watch. So much fun. It's an awesome show.
Okay, well, I digress. I'm sorry. Talking about Area BFE race. Well, before we get there, where did you place in the Tennessee race? Second?
Yeah, second. We're winning. Elements got a hold of us, and we ended up losing by like 18 seconds on adjusted time.
Yeah,
yeah, it's close.
I was rooting for you, man, and it was, first off, it's amazing how well the live stream was at that event. I'm not sure if you got a chance to go back and watch any of it, but when they had you guys in the woods, it was really clear. It was great. I was very surprised. So hats off to the Hammer. They're the Ultra 4 media team. Those guys rock. But you finished second at Tennessee, and then we go over to the Utah race. What did you do to prepare differently? And then what did you do on game day where you come out and you walk away with the W?
Really, in the car, we didn't change anything. I mean, we ripped it all the way down. I mean, we have what I like to say a 4,400 prep and a 4,800 class. So I mean, after every race, everything comes out. Everything gets gone through. T-case gets gone through. Transmission gets gone through. Diff, shafts, unit bearings. Everything gets torn apart. Everything gets checked twice. And so that's normal, but nothing really changed with like the car setup to that race, aside from the spare tire. I raised the car up about 2 inches just to stay off from bellying, because the new car has a way wider and way lower belly than the rest of the class. So going through the rocks and everything, it's definitely not a rock car. Luckily, I grew up out there in Area BFE, so I ran all those trails, you know, for the most part. Like, I know where the lines are. And so I think that was the saving grace, was that even a lot of the dudes that were locals or close have never been out there, because they closed Area BFE to the public like 3 years ago or something. So, but I mean, we grew up out there. So I just had like the backyard advantage, I think. So we just kept it smooth and cool. We knew where the lines were. I mean, there was nowhere where we were beating the car. And compared to Tennessee, when I finished, everybody's like, "Oh, I'm so beat. That destroyed me." And I was like, I feel amazing. Nice. Tennessee destroyed me.
Well, it's not kind to anybody. I'll say it like that.
Yeah.
It's unrelenting. You got the pole position in qualifying, right?
Yeah.
When you look at qualifying at any race, is the goal always to be on the pole for you? Are you a leader, not a chaser?
It depends on the track. At a place like that, where the passing was so minimal, I mean, and it was dusty.
Yeah.
I guess it really depends on who shows up in the track, because if I'm at Hammers, I don't want to qualify first. I want to qualify right behind somebody that's won it. You know, it's like, is who sets the pace. And that's the only shortage for everybody. Everybody's trying to find that pace that's consistently fast all day, because that's what wins it. So, you know, like qualifying directly behind somebody that's won it before, that knows that pace, you just have to catch them, and then you follow them. And then whenever you're following them, you're technically ahead on time.
Yeah.
But now you're not overdriving the car and braking. You're not underdriving the car and getting past. You know, you're kind of basing off of their pace. And, you know, like if I could go back and qualify directly behind Brad Lovell at Hammers, you believe that I would.
Yeah.
You know, the dude's won it so many times. So, but at a place where there's no passing, like Area BFE, yeah, it's huge. You got to qualify first. Fresh air, no people in front of you that are clogging the trails, because one dude messes up, I mean, it turns into a traffic jam. And
that happened. That happened during the race in a couple of different spots, and in basically all of the categories, 4,400, 48, 49, all that stuff. You had somebody broken down right at, I think it was it Twist and Jokers? Am I remembering that correctly? What was the obstacle that you guys had to hit at least once?
Oh, the Joker line. It was Britney Spears.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you would see guys down in the main pathway and everyone have to hit that, and it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, we didn't even pre-run that because it said Joker line, and so at every other race, basically it's Joker line is 4,400 only. I've never done a Joker line with Ultra 4. So I didn't even pre-run it, and so I was like, all right, so if I qualify first and I get there, I know nobody's going to be in the way, one, and two, it'll probably be the least dug out it will be all race.
That's it.
So I'm going to hit it the first lap, and it was, everybody downplayed it, but the UTVs right before, they had to hit it, so they dug it out. They dug it out so deep that, I mean, I ended up shooting it pretty well, but I heard that the dude that was qualified right behind me, Cody Young, he battled it for a while, I'm pretty sure.
Ooh, how big of a lead, or let me say this, how much did you win by in this race?
Unofficially 12 minutes, 45 seconds.
Okay, so I recall it being a substantial amount of time, but 12 minutes, I mean, that's sit down and have a sandwich kind of time right there. That's very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, but that's like where you have to push it. Whenever we're running times all day, and they're saying, oh, you got 3 minutes, you got 5 minutes, but in my mind, 3 minutes, some people check up. 3 minutes is one flat tire out there.
Yeah.
One flat tire. You getting out and changing it, that's 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, and that's a quick tire change, man.
Yeah.
That's really quick. Oh, man.
you always have to prepare for the worst. So whenever they're like, "Oh, you have 3 minutes, you need to check up," I was like, no, because something's gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so congratulations on your win there. I reached out to you, I think, just before that, and I was super excited to have you win, and then I have you on the schedule too, because that's always a bonus. Getting ready for this next race that you're in transit to right now. Tell me again where you're going. Tell me what's the mindset for the race, and is this a big hitter race? Are we going to see a lot of people there, or is this a little bit of a smaller race?
I don't know if it's going to be huge. It's a NorCal rock race, so it's not even the same organization. Right now with Ultra 4, we're leading national points going into nationals. So that's our main goal. So this race, we want to go, and we want to go out and win. We want to show up to everyone and win. But at the end of the day, it's a quick turnaround to nationals, and we really want to win that. So we're going to try and preserve the car, but whenever the green flag drops, like, all of your common sense goes out the window, and you just.
Okay, so that was part of my question here. I was going to get to it eventually. Do you still get that like manic couple of minutes in the car when you first start the race?
So your heart, for me, as soon as the green flag drops, I have no adrenaline. My heart is no longer beating fast, which is where people would get the exact opposite. But I'm getting worked up in the lineup, pulling up to the start line, getting ready to go, or even just, the whole week before. My heart is racing, but as soon as the green flag drops, it's peaceful.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really unique. So is it just your experience with racing that does that for you?
I think that I'm running through every possible scenario whenever we're driving up. So that's what's making my heart race. But then once the green flag drops, you're actually not daydreaming anymore. You're focused. So all your attention is on one thing. So you're like, you don't really, your adrenaline gets going whenever you almost make a mistake at high speeds. But no, I don't think it's experience. It's been like that since the very beginning. I'm super, super excited, can't control myself. And then once the green flag drops, it's peaceful.
Where do you think you shine as a driver? Is there a certain, do you shine really hard on the rocks with your experience there? Are you a good desert driver, or do you feel like you're a jack of all trades?
I feel like I'm pretty good at everything, but I think the biggest things would be the rocks, just because I grew up around it, and I grew up in Moab. I grew up wheeling, so I think in the rocks it would be number one. But we were partnered with Vaughn Gittin Jr. for a while, to where we were all driving around. So he taught me a lot about cornering and how to set the car up and different things like that whenever he came out and was testing with us and things like that. So that's something that's really, really showing now, is the cornering ability. And so we got a Pro Light, which is Lucas Oil Racing, and I ran that a couple times. That's going to teach you how to corner, because that's basically all it is. And so that's something that in Ultra 4 I feel like I'm really good at too.
Let me ask you, did you go to Crandon this year?
No, I wish.
So, okay, tell me about, is this something that you are going to try and make next year, or is this just on the bucket list, or what are your thoughts on Crandon in general? Because it's a totally different flavor for Ultra 4.
Yeah. Next year, we're going to hit it in Ultra 4, but hopefully by next year, I have the new Pro Light build. Lucas Oil went to that new motor, Spec LS motor, to where the new motor is so much better than what everything else was before.
Yeah.
You can just watch the West Coast guys that have gone to that motor are just running away with it. So I want to build the new Pro Light, and I really want to race short course there. I'm going for Ultra 4, but it's been a dream to go there and race world championships in short course. But that's the goal. It'll be super fun. That's a huge event. I've never been. I hear it's the funnest event of the year. It's
really. I'll
gonna
have
be fun.
It's so like King of the Hammers. I got a call from a company yesterday, and they were asking me if I was gonna. They were actually like really pushing for me to be at Hammers this year, and this year was my year to go. And then this summer, I got my wife pregnant. So the baby is due February 19th. So I think Hammers is probably off.
You can, yeah.
Maybe next year. I'll say it like that.
Hammers is a good time too. I'm excited to go to Crandon. Everybody, all of my friends that have gone, they all say it's awesome. Also next year, Sturgis during Bike Week.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's going to be cool. I've never been to Sturgis. Moab during Easter Jeep Safari. That one's going to be super, super fun too.
Is Ultra 4 going during EJS this year?
Yep.
Wow. Or next year, I'm sorry. Wow.
Yeah, next year. Moab during Easter Jeep, Sturgis during Bike Week, and then Crandon during World Championships.
Wow. Now, okay, let me ask you this. How do you feel about the current state of Ultra 4, given that you guys have some new massive sponsors with, Progressive and Ford and all those guys, Can-Am? How do you feel about where Ultra 4 is sitting right now, and what do you think about Ultra 4's future as it goes with these massive sponsors?
I think they've done awesome. I watched Ultra 4 start, like where they were, because it started, they call them the OG 13.
Yeah.
Have you heard that story?
I have. Tell me about it. There's some listeners that haven't heard it.
Okay, so the OG 13 is a group of 12 guys that started the Hammers. They went out and they raced for like a case of beer or something. And they always wondered why I hear Dave Cole and JT Taylor and all them talking about, why did we call it OG 13? I think it just sounded good. I mean, there was only 12 of us. Mm-hmm. But it's because they invited 13 people, one of which was my mom and my dad. And it laid over like a week after a race, so they didn't end up going, but they ended up going the next year and every year after trying to race it. So I really watched Hammers go from 10,000 people to 20,000 people to 40,000 people and so on and so forth. So watching it grow and watching Ford and Progressive and Can-Am and all those guys come in, it gets me really excited because it's growing so fast, and it's gonna eventually be big, really, really, really big. And then they're bringing in the desert world now with the trophy trucks and all that. I mean, I think it's just going to keep growing and keep growing. It'll end up becoming worldwide. They have Great Britain, the King of Britain, King of Portugal, all that, which aren't nearly as big. But I mean, I think they're all well on their way. Once the sport really gets the recognition that I think it deserves.
Yeah.
I think it's going to keep growing.
I think because Ultra 4 is covered by CBS Sport right now. I think as it continues, especially with the recent mishaps in NASCAR, I think that we'll see Ultra 4 be the umbrella of the off-road racing industry. And I think that, I might hurt some feelings here, but I think like the Southern Rock Racing Series and all the big rock bouncer stuffs will be the stepchild of Ultra 4 as Ultra 4 kind of makes the push into the big market and becomes, on Channel 5, on Channel 4 and 2, and these races get televised. I think that it's going to change forever. And really, when that hit me was last year when they brought the Bronco on and all this other stuff. Those are huge names, and there's a lot of discussion on the East Coast right now about how to bring big sponsorship in to fund it and make it better for everybody involved. And no one seems to have an answer on the East Coast. So you being here and watching it grow, what would you say were the most important steps for Ultra 4 becoming the monster that it is now?
I think it's really getting the right people, getting the right people with the backing previously.
Sure.
They brought in Shannon Campbell, super well known, sponsored by Monster, and once it started going up and going up and going up, there's a few guys out there that people will get mad whenever you say it, but they're the ones developing the sport. They're the ones pushing the envelope. They're the ones bringing in the sponsors. And granted, they're sponsoring Ultra 4, and Dave Cole's doing awesome running it. I mean, he brought in a new president, which is awesome. They're killing it this year. The live coverage, every race is awesome, but really it comes out on the lake bed. Who's responsible for the big sponsors coming in is probably 10 to 12 different dudes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And they're race car drivers. They're the ones that are bringing it in. You know what I mean? Like, it was always big, and this is going to make a lot of people mad.
Go for it. I love that.
But Vaughn coming into Ultra 4 was the greatest thing for the sport, probably. Yeah. You're bringing in huge sponsors like Ford and Monster and all of these, you know, and then you see these mainstream team now, the Fun Havers, you know, it's so professional, and it's such a big setup and flashy, and how other race organizations that are super serious do it. And so it's making everybody else follow in those footsteps, you know, like if I want to be relevant, I have to do that too. And so it's making everybody become more professional and getting us looked at a lot better than, you know, guys out there just beating their junk out in the desert.
Hey, that goes for guys out there, you know, thrashing their cars in the woods out here in the East Coast. I fully agree with you.
Yeah.
But and for my East Coast listeners who are all upset now that race, I don't mean it in a bad way. I just mean that we need more time. That's what I'm getting at. Anyways, I think you're right. I think especially bringing in the trophy trucks, like you mentioned, that's huge too. Didn't BJ Baldwin race trophy trucks last year?
Yeah, but BJ Baldwin, I mean, the first year Jesse James was there, Bryce Menzies, McMillan, Ampudia, like all the big names were there, you know, so watching them compete super cool, and you get all of the desert organization out there, and then they have the shootout too earlier in the week, which is all the rock bouncer dudes out there just thrashing these hills, and that's probably one of the biggest shows of the whole week is the shootout. Everybody's excited for the shootout. That's my favorite time of the week, and I'm out there racing.
Yeah, that's cool, and that's good to know. I think that a lot of the guys they want to feel represented there, and I think the shootout gives them a nice spectacle, I guess is the right way to say it, because truly that's what rock bouncing is it's a spectacle. The big hill climbs, they're just, it's like Monster Jam. I always use that, and it's just this thing where you can sit in one location, watch it all happen, and it's like, woo, you know, it's big, crazy times.
Everybody that's there sees all the action because there's nowhere else but the one, you know, when the dude rolls, which everybody loves seeing the carnage. Everybody loves seeing rollovers.
It's true.
Everybody saw it, you know. It's not like, oh, during race day, did you hear 30 miles out, so-and-so rolled? Oh, I missed it. No. At shootouts and the rock bouncer shows, I mean, it's a show, you know. And so that's huge too. When something cool happens and you're surrounded by 10,000 people all cheering and all saw the same thing, that creates a vibe among all those people. So it creates this energy around that show.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I would argue that we don't get 10,000 people at any events here in the East Coast. So the exposure at King of the Hammers is a huge deal. So let me say this. You've wheeled all across the country, from Tennessee to the Valley to Moab to everywhere else, and Colorado riding. Where's your favorite place to ride? And tell me, what would be the perfect trail? If you could just have all of your favorite flavors in a trail, what does it look like?
You know, they're all great for different reasons. I would say Moab is my favorite, maybe because I just know it so well. I know my way around, because like a lot of the other places we go and wheel, we just usually race. I mean, and if we go somewhere and wheel, then we don't know where we're going. We don't know what trails are cool, what trails aren't. But yeah, Moab, and probably Pritchett Canyon in Moab has always been my favorite. It's always been those spots where it can get really, really challenging, but you can bring anybody you want on the trail because there's bypasses around it. But I mean, you can hit some crazy stuff on that trail. And it's just a cool scenery. It's beautiful. There's some high-speed sections if you want to.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Do you get a chance to do much trail riding? I mean, Ultra 4 doesn't really seem to have an off season. And you're shaking your head no for those who are just listening to the podcast. But tell me about trail riding. Is it something you wish you could do more?
Yeah, definitely. It's something I really miss because it's how we got started, you know, and everything's so serious now whenever you go to the races. But I mean, you have no time. There is no time, and you can't take the race car out. I mean, the car, as soon as it's back from the race, it's torn down and getting gone through, and then it gets put back together and then taken to the race. So I mean, that's why I want to build a new car that's just a crawler, full crawler, like rear steer, portals, like whatever. But I mean, you know, it's also finding the time to do that while you're prepping the car and getting everything ready and everything like that.
When are you going to stop racing and get ready for hammers?
Right after Nationals. So that race is the 23rd of October. It's not it's a few weeks away, but
So what does hammers prep look like for you, other than, you know, the normal going through the car and everything else? Is it a time where you make, you know, move your seat 1/8 of an inch, or, you know, are you going to do anything like that for this off season?
Yeah, we're going to strip it down like we normally do, send off the motor, have it gone through, I'm rewiring the entire car, redoing the dash because I don't really like how the layout is, going through all of the drivetrain component, getting those all freshened up. And I mean, the difference is that like from regional race to regional race, you're prepping the car and you're doing all this, but you know, you're re-greasing shafts and you're re-greasing U-joints and everything. But whenever you're prepping for hammers, I mean, you're taking everything apart. You're taking apart the masters on the brakes. You're taking everything apart and checking it, and you're checking it twice. And if you're not, then you're either not going to finish or you're definitely not going to win, because the dudes that are out there that are running in the front, they're pushing the envelope. You watch their prep, it would blow your mind what those guys are doing, but that's what it takes, you know.
So what are you looking forward to the most right now? Because I'm out of questions, just so you know. I've got nothing else. But what are you looking forward to right now? What's next on the horizon for you?
We really, really, really want to win nationals, and then we're gonna race 48 one more year. I think next year will probably be the last year in 48. I'm slowly doing the same thing I did whenever I got into the first big car. I'm recruiting parts for a 4400 car.
Very nice.
Because I don't want to try and build it at once and cut corners or do anything that isn't the best of the best, in my opinion, you know. Because if you go out there and you spend all that money to get there and all that money to build that car and it's mediocre, then you got to restart.
You've wasted a lot of time and money.
Everything is as perfect as it can be, you know, don't rush a single thing on it. So I mean, we're hoping for hammers 2022, and that'll probably be the debut of a new single seat Jimmy's IFS car.
How does that feel? How does it feel to say that? Is it exciting? What do you feel?
It's super exciting. I've driven a 4400 car before, and they're insane. They're insane. One of my buddies, Shane Chiddicks from racing, he bought one of our cars, and it was a 4400 car. He couldn't make one of the races for some reason, and he called me up. He's like, "Hey, man, you want to race my car? I'll pay your entry fee. I'll bring the trailer down with the car in it, all the spares, everything. You just got to drive it. I'll fix it, whatever." And so I prepped it, and I got it ready, and went and raced it, and those things, they're insane.
What's the difference?
Like with the IFS and then the width and everything, like they're so more stable in the corners, and
go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
They're smoother. Like the rock gardens at the races where they're short course races with the 30-40 foot of just boulder fields that you're trying to skip across. in my car, I think it's smooth. I think it's really smooth. And then I get into one of those on 40s with IFS and bypasses and 30 inches of travel in the rear, and you're like, wow, I'm living low on the totem pole here. Yeah,
that's the best feeling, is like ignorance is bliss. You don't know how bad it is until you get something better.
Yeah, and so those things are insane, and they're so stable in the corners, so much more stable in a solid axle car or any solid axle car I've driven. Granted, my new 4800 car is super stable in a corner, but that thing, I mean, it felt like you could throw it into a corner through a couch and it would be fine. And it was like, you know, nothing was going to make that thing go over. I mean, granted, there is ways to make them go over. We've all seen that, but they're crazy to drive, for sure, to say the least.
Well, cool, man. I'm excited. I can't wait to see the new car. I'll just say it like that. I know that you guys, you guys built the Red Dragon, and there's been a nice amount of time between those two. So I'm sure that there'll be new technology you guys are putting in there. It'll only be better. But that's pretty much all I had for you. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I think that's it, man.
Cool.
Thanks for having me,
dude. You're the best, man. Like I said, I went total fangirl before we started the podcast. I've been following this guy for like a million years on social media, and back when I didn't know anything about anything, I found this guy with a super cool buggy. So really cool to talk to you. It's nice to bridge the gap and finally get a chance to get more Ultra 4 guys in here, and not only just a regular Ultra 4 guy, but a winner at that. So anybody you need to give a shout out to?
Mostly my sponsors. First off, Vision, Jimmy's, Nitto, MBRP, Don Waffle Hot Sauce. But the biggest shout out to my dad, Randy Rodd. That dude's the one that started this all. He started all the way back to the shop, to my racing career. He raised me. He's given me everything that he can possibly give, and I'm more than thankful for that.
Well, it sounds awesome, man, and I cannot wait to hear how you do this weekend. It's this weekend, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't wait to hear how you do this weekend. Best of luck to you, and if you don't mind sticking around for a second, we'll end this out, and thanks everybody for listening.